Rob Williams, the Time Lord, back in the starting lineup, but it was the Grant variety of Williamses that flourished in this particular game. A little dicey towards the end there. Al saved us with a clutch three. All of that next on First to the Floor.
Who's going to be first to the floor here? And it was Marcus Smart, as he usually is.
Brown drives, way upon the glass.
It's not the first time we've seen a superstar in green and white sacrifice the body.
Garnett, knocked away.
Hey, welcome into the First of the Floor show. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Things are getting back to normal. The crazy Christmas/New Year's time vacuum is over and behind us. The Celtics are winning again, although only just. Joining us on this one, Wayne Spoons. How you doing, sir?
Doing good, Ben. Yeah, 6-4 in our last 10. Perfectly acceptable. We keep that up. We'll be a top 3 seed for the rest of the season. So, life's pretty good, even though, it was a little scary there.
Could be a lot worse, as we almost just
right.
saw. And of course, also with us, the man with the mistress, Jake Eisenberg. Jake, how are you, mate?
I wasn't sure if you're going mistress or mustache. I've grown a Christmas mustache as well. Yeah, doing good. The mistress is all steam ahead at them as well. So.
Yeah,
how about you, Ben?
Some clutch blockery to end the game there and some effective offensive rebounds. I'm doing well. Like I said, just getting into the swing of things. Actually have time to watch games, analyze them, write notes about them during them now, as opposed to watching secretly on my phone under the Christmas family table. So things are getting back to normal. Guys, let's just get right into it here. This was the fourth and final regular season matchup between the Bulls and the Celtics, who are now 2-2 on the season each. 107-99 was the final score there. Like I said, a little dicey towards the end there. Al Horford saved us with a very, very clutch three. And then an emotive Tatum on the breakaway dunk fouled by Caruso to really put this one away. Spoonie, we'll start with you. What were your main takeaways from this game overall? How did the Celtics end up winning this game, broadly speaking?
So I think we should probably just talk about that fourth quarter, right? Because it's sort of, in one way, is a common trope in Celtics fandom that the Celtics blow a fourth quarter lead. Luckily, they didn't lose, but I think you can look at it that way. But unlike a lot of our blown fourth quarter leads, I actually really liked how they were playing in that fourth quarter, especially when Tatum came back in around 7 minutes. The ball was moving. They were getting open shots. The mistress, especially Derek White, missed a handful of wide open threes that even one of those goes down. I think it just changes the complexion of the game. And we're not talking about being worried at all. So liked how he played. The effort was there, multiple offensive rebound efforts, and defensively, sometimes there's just nothing you can do against a guy like Zach Lavine when he's on fire, white hot, the center, the core of the earth. So it was just kind of shooting luck that went against us, and it looked bad and it looked scary, but ultimately I don't think there's anything negative to take away from that fourth quarter.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the process was fine in the fourth quarter. Yeah. We just cannot hit open threes to save our lives. It felt like Grant Williams hit a lot of threes, but even he was 3 for 9. And one of those that was really clutched was the rim backboard and then back in. Even the Horford clutch one, we can't just get a straight splash to save our lives. Yeah, that's the takeaway for me. The whole game, I was if someone can just hit those punish threes where you get a stop, you're on a bit of a run, and it was the wide open threes just were not falling, and it was from everybody, whether it was Jaylen, Derek, Grant. No one could knock it down. Eventually, we're going to get back to hitting a normal amount of threes, and we're going to be winning these games by like 15 points. Like that, it was. Don't want to make it that simple, but early in the game, it was like I really loved the ball movement. People were attacking, drive and kick. They'll fall eventually.
Yeah, I suppose the positive takeaway there is like as many of these types of game as we're starting to have under our belt, these games where we can't hit any threes at all, where we're starting to get a nice little backlog of them that we find a way to win anyway. And it was a little dicey there in that little stretch where we went home, we lost twice to the Magic and the Pacers and all of that. But now we're starting to sort of find our way again in terms of winning by getting to the rim. The Celtics really operated out of the mid-range in this particular game as well. They were very effective in that short mid to mid-range space as well. But finding ways to win despite the three going down. And yet something that we hear all the time, Spoonie, is the Celtics are generating good looks from beyond the arc, which I would agree with, but we're continually not hitting those shots at a high clip. Like it's been a long stretch now of us, sure, generating those shots, not hitting them. To what degree do we need to begin accepting that maybe teams are beginning to allow us those shots, given that we're hitting them at such a low clip?
Yeah, I don't know. I do think when Vooch is on the court, you can't let him off the hook and take the first three that looks decent. Tatum did that a couple times. But if you put Vooch in multiple actions and instead of taking that first open three off the initial drive and kick, have multiple drives and kicks, Vooch is going to spin around like a top man. And eventually you're just going to get a layup because he just can't guard in space in that way. So I don't know if teams are intentionally letting us, they're probably letting some of our players shoot open threes. Like I think they're clearly helping off of Derek White now, Al to a lesser extent. And I think teams think they can shade off Grant Williams and get over to him and contest so they don't have to play him super tight, and that hurts the spacing as well. So I certainly think teams are not 5-alarm fire every time we get a wide open three anymore. That's for sure. But God, eventually they're going to start going again. I mean, we're not going to shoot. We shot 28% from three this game. You know, that would be like all time terrible. So it'll come back.
Yeah, we just need like 2 of these extra to fall per game to get us still below league average, but we're playing so well on both ends, which I'm sure we'll get to as well with the defense, that then these wins are going to turn into not stress ball Ben in the corner and
sweating.
I am sweating right now, but for other well-documented reasons.
And they're going to be more comfortable eventually. Yeah, because I think process over results. Brad Stevens, Nez.
Yeah, you mentioned the defense, and I want to get to that in a second because it was obviously a crucial part in how the Celtics came away with this game. Sticking with the offense and particularly the fourth quarter there, you may have touched on it briefly there, Spoonie. Jaylen Brown, like a real sort of duality of man performance here in this one where he had that first to the floor, defense against Zach Lavine, dived on the ball, forced a turnover. Obviously, we scored off of that turnover, but then very mind-numbingly poor mid-range attempts in isolation in critical moments to close the game. That almost cost us the game. One of them led to a Vucevic three-point attempt that went in. Jake, what were your thoughts on JB late in the game in this one?
There was a play late. I think it was after one of those mid-range attempts, and the possession afterwards, Grant had the ball, and Jaylen was definitely open, and Grant looked him off and looked for Tatum, and it was definitely the right decision. And Tatum didn't take the shot. I think that may have been the play that he found Al in the corner for the clutch bucket, right? He was just forcing it. And they were talking about the mid-range game, him, DeMar, the comparison, like Jaylen, well documented, 53% on mid-range this year. He was forcing that shot because the threes weren't going, it felt like. 7 for 21 from the floor. Mm-hmm. He was good at getting to the rim at times. I don't know if he hit any mid-range. All 7 buckets may have been at the rim today. Nothing was going down. Maybe one, but like not many. And then he knocked down his free throws as well, which kind of like saved him. Defensively, there was a little backdoor cut that he missed as well. But But that play, that was a clutch defensive play on Lavine, which he almost ruined by sticking his hand out as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Spoonie, any thoughts there?
Yeah, and Jaylen, nobody else on the team had more than 2 turnovers. Jaylen had 4, so it was kind of a bizarre game for him. But I also think the rim pressure, and he roasted Vucevic in the pick and roll a few times, was pretty valuable. He hit a couple, at least one clutch layup with like 5 or 6 minutes left. That was huge. So sort of a weird game. I don't want to knock him too much because 2 of those threes go, and I thought all of his threes were good shots, except bar maybe 1, but they were open. I think most of them were catch and shoot. 2 of those go. He's 9 of 21 for 25 points. Or, 40-ish% shooting. Like we're just I think we're probably talking about it a little differently. So I don't want to kill him too bad, but yeah, those 2 mid-range jumpers with like 3-4 minutes left were almost unforgivable. I mean, that's like all the bad stuff we talk about the Celtics crunch time offense boiled down into 2 plays.
Yeah, absolutely. 6 turnovers in the last game, 4 in this one, like you said, and some very questionable decision-making down the stretch, and not an unfamiliar trait when it comes to JB. I don't want to knock him too hard because he did have some nice moments, particularly earlier in the game, and he had some clutch moments in the fourth as well, but early, both Jays were going pretty hard at Vucevic out of the pick and roll there and having some success getting to the rim. Their rim finishing per cleaning the glass, I don't have the tab open right now, was very efficient in this game, but the rim efficiency was very efficient. Thank you.
Analysis, baby.
The amount at which they went to that look, though, was unfortunately very low, but they were, like I said, able to operate very efficiently out of the mid-range. Should we switch to the defense, guys? I think we've sort of covered offensively the flavor of this game. Defensively, drop coverage, the Celts were chasing guys, fighting through screens early in this game, which sort of nullified the advantages that the Bulls would otherwise get out of that drop coverage from the Celtics early in the game. Then second quarter, third quarter, very lackluster. The Bulls starting to get some good looks in the mid-range and some with Vooch down low as a result of that coverage from us. I thought Rob Williams was really effective in those defensive looks because he's like one of like 1, maybe 2 people in the league who can basically jump out of drop and block the perimeter attacker there. Jake, what were your thoughts on the defensive performance from the Celtics?
Oh, I can't wait to talk about Rob. He's just, it doesn't matter what scheme you're playing. It's like, I wonder if they should go to drop. Should they switch? It's like, you can look like the smartest coach in the world if you've got Rob Williams out there because it's like, oh, genius going to drop today against, the DeMar DeRozan. It's like, yeah, we've got the 9-foot arms of Robert Williams contesting everything. The defense I thought was really good. There were moments, sure, throughout the game where I thought they were getting beat off the dribble. Brogdon, I think, is sneakily gets beaten off the dribble a lot more than you would like. Kobe White got him late. But overall, I thought the defense was great. I feel like Vooch usually kills us on the offensive boards. I'm just going to check now, but he didn't kill us really offensively on the offensive rebounds. How many did he have? He had 1 offensive rebound. Exactly. Right. So, and that's the Rob Williams effect as well. And I think that's, again, another underrated thing that Rob brings to the table is not just like how good he is on the switches and how good he is in the drop, but the rebounding is absurd. On both ends. He's just snatching these balls out of midair. But man, the Bulls coming into today, like they've been much better as of late. Like over the last 10 games, they have the 4th best offense in the league. And I know DeMar DeRozan went out early, but once he went out, Zach Lavine turned into like Donovan Mitchell from this season, right? Like he was hitting absolutely everything, contested deep. And I thought they did a good job of gang rebounding. Forcing those difficult shots. Like, it didn't feel like they were getting a lot easy. It was just tough shot making.
Yeah, I thought we did a really good job of limiting how many shots DeRozan could even get up because he only took 9 shots in 23 minutes. And usually when we play the Bulls, we run that drop coverage and it's like all you can eat buffet for DeRozan. He just gets up like 22 mid-range jump shots and makes 18 of them. Or 20, it feels like he makes all 22 sometimes when you're watching him. But so the fact he only got off 9 shots when he was playing. And then, when he goes out, obviously that's going to hurt them. But yeah, Jake, to your point, I mean, if Lavine doesn't make 2 of those absolutely absurd threes, we're giving up 93 points. Like, that's a pretty incredible defensive effort. And there were maybe a handful of shots where I was like, I cannot believe the Bulls missed that. One of which that Ayo Dosunmu layup in like the second quarter. He just biffed. Like, I mean, nobody was near him. But really, I didn't think like, wow, we are getting really lucky. They're just missing open shots. I thought we did a really good job contesting. And it is hilarious watching people pull up from 3 when Rob is guarding them. And they're like, I have enough time to get this off. And then as they're in their motion, he just gets so high up. He may not get it, but he affects the shot, the air ball, it clangs off the backboard. I mean, it's just ridiculous how good he is on the defensive end, man. And he's gotten so smart in his like understanding of spacing and where he needs to be to stick with his guy and also be there for help. It's like he's a different person from when he was a rookie or second year. Like, he was unplayable almost in his second year. And here he is just like changing the game without scoring. And that's just like a very few number of guys in NBA history who can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then contrast that to the 3 minutes and 8 seconds of Luke Cornett that we got in this one.
Oh, boy.
Where I think that's what I wrote down on my run sheet here. Like, drop coverage is a problem for the Celtics. This is going to be a big deal in the playoffs. And then like Rob comes back in, and even Al to some degree, and Grant, who was great on screens as well. And suddenly it's way less of a concern. But there's a reason, sometimes we criticize Joe Mazzulla with his rotations and his timeouts and whatnot, but limiting Luke Cornett to 3 minutes and 8 seconds was a solid move, in my opinion. Jake, should we get to the centers? Obviously, Rob Williams starting in this game was a big story going in, although it was Grant Williams who came away with the Williams Cup, if you will. I thought the distribution of minutes was really healthy. I liked the duration of the stints of Rob Williams in terms of keeping them quite short and just sort of like peppering him in, for lack of a better term, throughout the game and not allowing him to get overly fatigued at any point. And then to have Al Horford like fill in the gaps in those instances where Rob has to rest is a recipe for success, you would say. So what were your thoughts? I know it meant a lot to you going into this one. How about
Yes. Yeah, Z Gamer in the chat, he got on me before the game. It's like, Jake's going to have a heart attack when the first time Rob plays more than 25 minutes. 23 minutes. So we didn't quite get there today. And that's what everybody was clamoring. Jayson Tatum was clamoring. Jalen Brown was clamoring. Let's get Rob in the starting lineup. We want to play with Rob. Look, Celtics Twitter and humans in general rarely get a consensus on anything, but everybody can agree that Rob is like the chosen one. Like, name your fictional character, Gohan from Dragon Ball Z, Avatar, The Last Airbender, Neo, like this hidden power that like once they harness it and unlock it, like the world is saved. And it's pretty clear that if Rob's ever able to get to like 30 minutes a night, that he's like one of the most impactful players in the league. I don't know how you can kind of watch him and not think that. Even like just small stuff, like free throw shooting. I think he's like up to like 73% on the year. Sneakily was 89% in the playoffs last year. It's like one of my favorite stats. Is like, I don't know. I don't care who's shooting free throws. I think Rob, I trust more than anyone right now. Like, he just kind of has everything. So coming to the game, he finally started. Rejoice, Celtics fandom around the world. But it's like, it doesn't really matter who starts, everybody. Like, it's how many minutes are you playing, who's closing. And because he started, I don't know if that's why he wasn't able to close, but he was at the 23-minute threshold. I don't think he's gone past 23 minutes yet. That's what we're kind of waiting to see. So, and I'm not. It's hard to say. Is it a knee thing? Is it a fitness thing? Because he plays at such a frantic, high energy pace. Like, he's launching into the. He has to run an extra 8 feet on each possession because he's flying into the bench to try and block a three, or he's like flying, to get an offensive rebound. Like, he's just everywhere. So he plays at a really high, high activity rate. So it's fatigue. Is it? Saving him from himself, it's hard to say, but I'm happy with the current plan. Like, we have to be playoff alphas. We can't be regular season betas and be like, we could get him in the lineup. We need 30 minutes of Rob. This is what we currently have. This version of Rob, he probably gets an extra 2 or 3 minutes. Plenty of Rob in order for us to like maintain a top 3 seed at worst.
Yeah, my cat is absolutely on one right now. She's going at me. So it's every ounce of professionalism. Credit to me for keeping it together and still participating. Rob is missing less than 1 shot per game. He's missed 7 shots this season.
Doesn't he have more blocks than misses as well?
Yeah, yes.
It's wild.
And he had 1 miss tonight and 2 blocks. So
this is
getting
the stat.
wider. He's just so fun. I named the post for this podcast "Joy to the Lord" because I'm just so happy he's back. I mean, Ben, how are you? Give me your thoughts on Rob, dude. Come on, how's it feel?
Well, I often talk about my neuroses as it pertains to the Celtics on this podcast and in my everyday life to anyone who will listen. And Rob is just such a soothing balm on the rash of drop coverages of Bulls game past. So to have him out there and for it to be that comforting to me, imagine how soothing and comforting it is for the rest of the Celtics coaching staff, front office, players, etc. He just makes such a difference. And we touched on it earlier, how he's able to make such a difference without ever even really touching the ball or putting up a shot attempt. Just his positioning on the court. It was the first look of the game, one of the first looks of the game. The first one when he finished an oop from Al Horford.
Big to big lobs are back.
Oh, yeah. So good. Double bigs are back, baby. Second one, he set a screen on the wing for Tatum, and then Rob's roll to the hoop just opened up like an infinite chasm of space for Tatum to just splash a wide open mid-range bucket, and that was just like the first couple of possessions of the game, and then it was all downhill from there. So love having the Time Lord back, love the soothing balm that he is in all of our lives, and as far as the minutes, like I like the plan. Like, keep it sub 25. We want to see 48 minutes of, like, not 48 minutes, really. We want to see a lot of minutes of Rob because we enjoy the product, the on-court product. But what's more enjoyable is the playoff on-court product. And we've got a way better chance of getting there healthily if we can limit his minutes from, around the 25-minute mark. Maybe ramp him up as we get towards the end there. So from a conditioning standpoint, he's there. But for now, I see no need to rush it all. So, long answer to your question, Spoonie.
Soothed like balm.
In a word.
Is what is Ben. Yeah. And I think
Balm
maybe
Lord.
They Balm Lord. Yeah. The Soothe Lord. They maybe as they get in, it's like, maybe that it's not necessarily ramping him so he's playing 28, 29, 30 every night, but it's like, can we test it 1 in 3 games where he's playing high 20s into the 30 mark just to test? And like, I'm sure they've talked about all of these options. Like, clearly, they're hyper aware of how important Rob is and how there's no reason to rush him into that upper limit of minutes. But yeah, baby steps. It's just like when Piccolo took Gohan when Raditz was taking over Planet Earth for all the Dragon Ball Z guys after there.
That one's a little over my head, Spoonie. Did that hit with you?
I mean, I know who the characters are. I watched DBZ, but I could not give you the plots other than like Frieza on the planet or whatever. But yeah,
gotcha. I'm sure someone out there will hit me up.
I'm
and be
sure.
Like, they got that one.
I was too busy playing StarCraft in the early 2000s.
Same.
Nice.
Jayson Tatum. Let's move on to the individual performances here. Per Sean Grande, most points ever by a Celtic in the first half of a season, ever in the history of the Celtics, with 1,197. John Havlicek is second with 1,193. He came out hot early, finished with a pretty sexy stat line, 32 points, a steal, 7 assists, 8 rebounds, and just 1 turnover with a plus 14, and sort of that game-deciding and 1 finish to end the game with the, you called it in our chat, Spoonie, this the outlet of frustration towards the end of the game there. Tell me what your thoughts on Jayson Tatum were in this one and why he may have been so frustrated when it came to the end of the game there.
Yeah, so let me just say Tatum has its faults. Tonight was just about a perfect Jayson Tatum game. The decision-making was almost flawless. I don't think I can remember a game, at least recently, where it seemed like every time, first of all, he hit the paint all night long. He absolutely lived in the paint, and he made the right play basically every time he was there, whether it was going for the shot, taking a floater, getting all the way there and trying to finish, or, and much more importantly, kicking out to an open shooter or kicking out to somebody who was open so they could keep the offense moving. It just seemed like every time he touched the ball, the offense was moving great. And I think the frustration of what I was getting at was, one, it's really annoying seeing like Zach Lavine claw his team back on these ridiculous shots that, are like 25, 1-4 maybe at best to go down. Mm-hmm. And Tatum was also getting double teamed, right? So it probably feels pretty helpless when you're constantly getting doubled in the fourth quarter and you've just got to pass the ball and you're watching your teammates miss wide open shots that you're generating for them. I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but it's probably like, oh my God, we're creating these wide open shots and missing. And then on the other end, Zach Lavine's throwing in like basically running hook shots that he's laughing about afterwards because he knows how much of a prayer that was to go in. So I just think when he got that breakaway,
bless you, breakaway dunk.
That's good timing. Yeah.
That's
the breakaway dunk. He let out the primal scream, just like my primal cough right there. And he just seemed very relieved.
Yeah. I did not enjoy the fact that Caruso went for the ball on that one, just on the side there. There was no way he was going to stop him at best. He was going to get the 2 points, but he got the and one as well. And Caruso should know better because that's how he broke his hand on a play like that. But the way I would describe Tatum today and over the last few games, especially, has just been precise. And I think that speaks to his decision making. He's purposeful. He's attacking quickly. Like he's not like half his shots at threes, 8, free throw attempts, the 7 assists. If anyone could hit a shot, it would be another like close to another triple double again. It's like what we were talking about when we compared him to all the other MVPs. It was just like it was a no weakness game. He did everything. The defense as well. I'm trying to remember who he got the kind of steal on, which led to a fast break on the other end, but it's escaping me. But it was a superstar game. It was an MVP game, two-way Tatum. That's what makes him so great. It's just the all-around superstar that he's become. All aspects, rim, kickouts, free throw attempts, 4 from 11 from 3. It's too much to ask for him to go 40%. He has to live around 30% these days. But yeah, just doing it all.
Yeah, precision is such a good word for it. And it's precision that is so specific to this team and this roster. Like there's precision and making the right basketball play in a general sense, no matter what team you're playing for. And then there's this precision that you refer to, Jake, where it's like not just the roster, but who's got it going on a particular night. And we saw it with JB not hitting some of those wide open 3-point attempts early in the game. And then JT looking for looks elsewhere, just within the vacuum of one game. His knowledge of the roster top to bottom and how to orchestrate it such to pull out a victory, even when all those threes aren't going down, is really, really solid. And, for a 24-year-old, potential MVP, we're in a good spot here, guys. I got to say.
Okay, so
yeah, we've got an MVP candidate. We're the 1 seed. We got the freaking chosen one on the team. It's all right. A good time.
It's all good.
Yeah.
2023 is off to a good start. Grant Williams, who we have to talk about it, and I guess talking about that precision, that level of precision and connectiveness with the other guys, like what Grant. Compared to Jalen Brown, what Grant Williams lacks in talent, he makes up for in all of the fundamentals, right? And sometimes a game like this leads me to question which is the more desirable from a winning standpoint, from a fan standpoint. Obviously, unquestionably, Jalen Brown is more talented. But when Grant is firing on all cylinders like this and being the grantiest Grant he can be, like I kind of love him more. Spoon, am I wrong for feeling that way?
Oh man, I don't know, Ben. That's
hey, don't invalidate Ben's feelings. He can feel whatever you want.
Invalidate away.
No, you can certainly feel
Ask
that
my wife.
way.
I'm used to it.
But what Jaylen is asked to do is just so much more difficult than what Grant's asked to do. So when Grant pops up for 20 points, we're singing his praises, and then we're talking about how bad Jaylen was, and he had 19. You know what I mean? Like,
fair.
It's just the expectations are just so wildly different. But I don't want to take anything away from Grant, whose shot is kind of he really hasn't had it recently. He's shooting 25% from 3 in the last 5 games, but I think he's played some of his best basketball recently. He just seems really in control when he's attacking the paint, and he's finishing through contact a
Mhm.
lot. I think he had a nice post up tonight, which I always am asking for more Grant post ups, because that's what he was, a beast on the block at Tennessee. He can post people up and pass out of it a little bit. So I just really love the way he's playing on the offensive end, and he's always going to be a good defender now. So yeah, he was great, man. I'm really happy. And then if he starts really finding the shot again and gets back up towards 40% regularly, what a player, dude.
Yeah, he's a superstar role player when he's having nights like this. And that's on a night where he was 3 for 9 from 3, when we know he can have games like game 7 against Milwaukee where he just goes absolutely bananas from 3. Two things that I liked the most today, and one of them is kind of a trend, is that the complaining to the refs thing has gone away. Like not fully, like he wanted, but like you can tell that it's something that people have spoken to him about, and that he's seen. He's really held back on the ref thing, which is kind of an aside to the play. But he had 2 really quick trigger threes today. One of which I think that went in. The other one that didn't. But like that's, I think, and I think he's finding that, because it's like he didn't have a naturally super quick 3-point shot last year. Like he was just kind of figuring out what the shot actually looked like. And I think throughout the season, he's been trying to find the balance between when do I close out, when do I shoot, because it's kind of felt like he's held back on some wide open threes where he just needs to go up. And to see him take some honestly pretty tightly contested one tonight, and look really confident doing it, that's probably like the next piece for Grant. Like he's the stuff in the preseason that we saw with like the fake handoffs and driving the closeouts and some post-up stuff, more off the dribble, just doing more than purely being 3-and-D. He's definitely doing that on a really consistent basis now. So the next step, to just be really confident to like, that's a good shot at any time. It's just those quick fire corner threes, especially like when they're coming off ball movement.
There's one other name I want to get to very quickly, and that is Malcolm Brogdon. And we've got the world leading expert in Malcolm Brogdon here with us on the podcast.
Yeah.
Wayne Spooney, whose article on Celtics blog, if you haven't read it, is well worth a read. It's Malcolm in the middle, Brogdon's fit in Boston. So Spooney, I guess I ask you to comment on Brogdon's performance in this game as a continuation from what you've got here in your article. What did you think from Brogdon in this particular game?
Yeah, I thought it kind of played out. In one of my main premises in that article is that we should be limiting the amount of time Brogdon and Jaylen play without Jayson Tatum on the court. And it really felt like that played out tonight, where Brogdon came in. It was, Tatum, Brogdon, and Brown were out there. They got like an 8-9 point lead. And then Tatum came out and it was just Brogdon, Brown. And then all of a sudden it was a 2-point game. So they just don't particularly complement each other. And that's not to say they're bad players or anything like that. Not every player is going to complement other players perfectly, right? And these two guys really seemingly don't. The numbers bear that out. So I thought tonight was some more evidence of that. But I could see Joe's thinking, like, you need these guys to play well together, as Z-Gamer tries to take full credit for whatever.
Can I bring this comment up or not?
Sorry. Yeah, that's fine. No, he and I talked about, actually, he brought the Brogdon Brown struggles to my attention probably, a month ago at this point. And I was like, that's interesting. I've not noticed it. I'll keep my eye on it. And we've been talking about it for a couple weeks now. And then I finally felt like I had enough evidence to write something about it. So that's where it came up. It's not all bad though. Brogdon, I thought he was generally really good tonight. He had a couple big shots. He had that crazy tip in off one of the weirdest plays I've ever seen. What was that? 4 offensive rebounds or something like that on that tip in the fourth quarter. I thought he did a better job of moving the ball and not monopolizing the offense as well. So, he missed a few shots, but I liked what I saw from Brogdon.
I'm starting to feel like I'm trending towards I'm not sold on Malcolm Hill, which is interesting. But yeah, I think he had another one of them tonight. It was right after the Desunmo missed layup. He had one right back the other way where he blew the layup. I think we just spoke about it in another pod. It's like he gets himself into trouble sometimes and then forces it when it's like we have so many good players. Like you've collapsed the paint. Let's just move it. And the defense has been, bent already. Like you can get down. Someone else can get downhill from here. The defense, I want more from him on that end. And maybe that's unfair. Like my idea and what I'd seen from Brogdon defensively previously isn't quite living up to my expectations so far, but that could just be like, that's been the player that he's been for a while. So yeah, if he's not like 3 for 9, I thought he was fine tonight. And he made that clutch play. But I want kind of a bit more of like a sturdier, reliable, consistent presence from Brogdon, where I feel like we're getting a little bit more of a yo-yo with Brogdon right now. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at there at the moment.
Yeah, I test watching him, particularly in the first half. I was thinking the hustle's back at least. Like he at least seems a little bit more dialed in from an energy standpoint, which I know X's and O's people are going to take nothing from that. But he just felt a little bit more like he cared about like the team that he was playing for, I suppose. But he finished the game of minus 17. And I know, single game plus minus, like people like to turn their nose up at that. But in a game that we won by 8, and we've got like plus 20s from Jaylen, who had some poor moments in this game, plus 21s from Derek White, like a minus 17 from a guy whose role is as significant as Malcolm Brogdon's, and in only 22 minutes, that is pretty telling.
Is it time to readjust our expectations about who Malcolm Brogdon is as a player? Think about it. If I gave you in a vacuum a 22-minute point guard averaging 10, 4, and 4 on pretty good efficiency, like you'd be like, hey, that's a great bench player. But it just seems like, and I'm just as guilty as this as anybody. I'm legitimately asking the question. Like I keep expecting like, well, he'll just figure it out. And all of a sudden he's going to be averaging like 18 on and be hyper efficient. So I don't know. Do we want to adjust our expectations with who he is as a player, or as Eric Weiss is dropping in the chat that he's pacing himself so he can stay a bit healthy? Do you guys think it's that, or is he just in a different part of his career? He's 30. He's had a lot of injuries. I mean, it's not out of the question.
Well, it's like physically he looks good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like his explosion looks good. But yeah, like maybe like, that's part of it too, is he's used to playing starter minutes. And, if he does miss some shots early, he's able to kind of find that later in a game. Versus now, he gets his 2, pretty, sizable stints. And if he, is cold from there or has a couple of turnovers, and like the Malcolm Brogdon experience for that game is going to be kind of tainted a little bit. I do wonder if he's on a similar program to Robin that way. Like it's a good point from Eric. It's like he rarely gets above the 24-minute mark. And you did speak about how Derek White and how defenses are starting to leave him open. When you get into the playoffs and teams are like really keyed in on that, like coming into the season with Malcolm Brogdon being added to the team, I was like, one of my favorite lineups was, Derek, Marcus, Jaylen, Jayson, and Rob. But now we get to add Brogdon to it, and that's like a plus shooter. I still think that's true. So I think having that option in the playoffs is really important. So like, maybe in the playoffs, those minutes start to go up, and that's where his value, is really shown. And so, it makes sense. Yeah, he's had, medical issues all the way back to the draft from Eric again there. Like that's why he fell. And we've seen it all the way through his career. So keeping him on this plan is obviously smart. But also partly why I'm more willing to include Brogdon in a trade than Derek White.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. I wasn't ready to talk about him through the lens of a trade. I don't know if I can take myself there yet.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I had like I think I'm taking a tiny bit of credit for Grant Williams' performance because I also included Grant in my trade. And so I think he probably saw that and was like, get this guy out of here.
Get a dunk on this dude talking to my dad. Come on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Talking to my dad and then wants to trade me. Ridiculous.
Only I might talk about my dad. Yeah. As far as expectations for Brogdon, I think like those expectations were set like coming out of not winning the finals and then trying to understand what pieces were needed to get over the hump if we were to get back there. And then Brogdon, that acquisition felt like it addressed that. And so to see him not live up to that specific expectation is still difficult to take on, I think, as a fan. So, yeah, Spoonie, I think you're right, maybe to begin to readjust expectations, at least with what Eric's saying in the chat here, as far as maintaining his health or preserving his health heading into the postseason. That's probably an important thing to point out and to keep in mind next time we see him go minus 21 in a game that we won by 8 points. Any other individual performances that you guys want to touch on? I think we've almost touched on everyone who saw the court, aside from Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser. I will say on Hauser, I think he's poised for a comeback. The shot's looking good. The volume isn't there, so we're not seeing a lot of it. I think he's poised. He was, I think, a minus 12 in this game. So not a great performance there. But I don't feel like he's being... Yeah, he looked fine. I don't think he's being burnt really defensively at all. If anything, I think his defense is steadily improving, at least on an isolation basis.
Joe brought in Hauser, Cornette, and Pritchard at the same time. And it's like, these guys are all fine if you bring them in one at a time with our good players.
With all the other really amazing players.
But bringing all three of you, what is this, a G League game, Joe? What are you doing, man? That was just bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want Joe to tinker more. That's like something that maybe we're going to get to today is like, I would like to see Joe play around a bit more, like, moving Brogdon in and out, maybe not into the starting lineup, but I know Spoonie on Twitter, you were saying maybe we flipped the Jaylen Jayson like early rest thing.
Which he did tonight, actually.
Yeah.
Jaylen came out first.
Yeah, okay, well, so parts of the tinker, I guess we can't be like, we want him to do stuff.
Tinker, but not that way.
But not
Joe.
that, not that button.
True.
Yeah. No. I mean, Horford clutch, man. I mean, like, what do you have? 8, 7, and 5 stealing a block? Like, he's just and today seeing the starting lineup back with Rob and Al in it, and then Jalen Jayson. I know it was Derek and not Marcus, but another 90s cartoon reference, but like the, Ninja Turtles when Splinter was a grown up and he brought the Ninja Turtles in and then it flips and he turns into Master Splinter. I was actually working on, because I couldn't find the meme. I'm going to post it on Twitter. It's like my favorite thing ever to see him evolve into like this stretch 4/5, throwing alley-oops to Rob and just adapting in any way that is necessary. It's just beautiful.
God, I want to see Horford hoist that championship trophy.
I know,
more
man.
than anyone else on the team, aside from maybe Marcus Smart and Brad Stevens being out there on the floor as well. We're way ahead of ourselves. But to move on, and we're going to roll downhill here to finish because we, like always, have gone over time talking about the game. Let's talk about the standings very quickly. If you can see this minuscule tab that I've opened up here. Celtics, I'll read it for you. 29-12.
Team.
They've gone 7-3 in their last 10, and most importantly, they're 1.5 games up on the Brooklyn Nets. And some news there, according to Dave McMenamin, and then like everyone who was watching the game, KD is injured. The story there is I'm conflating two tweets. We'll get to the other tweet in a second. KD, I think it was Woj who tweeted out after the initial 2-week timeline that they're now looking at potentially a month of outage for Kevin Durant there. Unsure of the follow-up question, like the obvious one is like, is this impactful to the Celtics? Obviously it is. The Nets, who are nipping at our heels, their best player is out and is likely going to be out for the 2 upcoming matchups against us. I suppose, like, I want to be careful how I choose my words here. Obviously we're not happy that anyone's injured. We're relieved, Spoonie, that we might be able to sort of get a little bit of wiggle room between us and the Nets here as a result of this. And do you think, like, how much does that influence the 2 upcoming matchups, given that the Celtics tend to play down to oppositions where key players are missing?
I really hope that OKC game has beat some sense into them about playing down to their opposition. So far, looks so good, but
I don't know, the Spurs game.
Yeah, but that was just a strange game on the road at the end of a long road trip. Then they won. They didn't get beat by 40 like against OKC. You know what I mean? So the Spurs are spicy. Obviously, KD being out is for if you're just looking from a seeding standpoint. there's an opportunity here for the Celtics to make up some ground. I, against my better judgment, really like KD, and still, despite all the goofy stuff he's done, he's just incredible to watch. Very unique player. So it kind of stinks, but also, if you can build up a nice little cushion while he's out, and then you can kind of cruise for a month or two and then ramp back up in April on your way into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a tricky position as a fan. Like, obviously, when KD goes down, you're like, well, if KD gets injured, that's good for it's just objectively good for the Celtics. It's just like a weird ethical feeling you have in your body. Because, like, at the same time, this has been an unreal season for the superstars of the league. Like, this top 5, top 6 of like KD, Tatum, Giannis, Jokic, Embiid, Luka. I'm probably missing someone, but like that 6 are just on a completely ridiculous level this year. And so to have that top 6, like every night, it's like, oh my God, KD had 44 on 24 shots. So Tatum had a 30-point triple-double. It's just like every night one of these guys is doing something crazy, or 3 of them are doing something crazy. So it's just a bummer in general. Like, if you like basketball, like all of us do, like if someone was to ask us before the Heat game, hey, you have the option to press the KD hurts his MCL and is out for a month button. Like, I'm not going to press it, probably. Probably not going to press it. And it's just a weird spot.
Yeah, I might press the ankle soreness out for the game button. Given the opportunity. But yeah, certainly don't want to see anyone injured for any period of time, especially a person as fun to watch, or a player as fun to watch as KD. Guys, we're going to move on to, I think we've already answered 3 of these, but the name of the segment is the biggest questions on the minds of Celtics fans. Question 1 was, should Rob start and play more minutes? And I think we've all sort of established, the fan base in general has established their thoughts on that. Felt like the general consensus is like, yeah, we want to see him start, but we want to keep those minutes limited heading into the playoffs. So anything else you want to add there, or can we move on?
Well, to quote the great Joe from this podcast, the games are won and lost in the third quarter. It is nice to have Rob out there, because it's like I kind of miss seeing those games where we're up like 14-2. And we're just kind of obliterating teams out the gate, because I feel like, real good analysis sets you up really well for the rest of the game when you've demoralized the other team for the first 5 minutes of the game. So yeah, from that perspective, I kind of like Rob in the starting lineup, but it's like, okay, now where do we find that extra rest in order for him to close? It's just a tricky one.
I'm going to move on, if that's okay.
Yeah,
number 2, the one that we haven't touched on at all in this particular podcast is, should we trade Peyton Pritchard and pieces for a wing or a big? Spoonie, what do you think?
So I can see both sides of the argument in that Brogdon injury prone, Smart, we're seeing it right now. He always picks up knickknacks throughout the season, but ultimately Smart didn't play, and Peyton Pritchard played 3 minutes tonight. Yeah. So if you're not going to play him 15 minutes when one of these guys is out, then you might as well just trade him, because it'll be better for him. You're just like doing him wrong by chaining him to the bench at this point. So yeah, if he's not going to play at all, and look, hey, in the playoffs, we're screwed anyway if 2 of these guards are out. So, Pritchard's not going to save us there as well. So you might as well go get a wing that can take some of the load off the Jays. I think there's definitely some targets out there. We've talked about a few of them on a few pods back, but I at this point, I think I'm for it, even though 3 weeks ago I wasn't.
Go on, Ben.
Well, yeah, I think I'm for it as well. As much as I love a PP insertion mid-game, I just think, you've put it in our run sheet here, so I don't want to tread too much on your toes here, Jake. But we're win now, despite the relative youth of our roster. We're looking to win now, because these windows can close at any time. And Pritchard, maybe Gallo, by far our biggest tradable trade chips, unless you want to start, looking at swinging for the fences for a bigger name. These are guys that we can ship out at little impact to how we play on a game-to-game basis, and try to bring something in that could be impactful. And I know I said that Sam Hauser is poised for a comeback, but it's that wing spot to relieve the Jays, particularly if we see an injury to either Jay for a significant stretch of time. That's what I'm worried about. Gallo was going to come in and address that, but obviously he got injured himself before we even got going. So now I'd like to see a piece come in exchange for Pritchard, who can help us out there. And we have, like you said, Spoony, talked about that on previous pods. We're going to hit that more as we approach the trade deadline. Jake, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, like it's a tricky one because on one hand, I'm like, what realistically is there something we're going to realistically bring back that is going to help us win a title? And that's what Brad Stevens kind of needs to figure out. And I do think there are those little pieces that can help. Javonte Green's, the guys we've kind of spoken about. But yeah, you can't get precious about someone like that if you're not going to play him. Like there are no other great NBA teams right now. There is no team that's like currently in the league this year that we're going to look back on in 10, 20 years. It's like, oh my God, the 2022, 23 Grizzlies. It's like that team doesn't exist in the NBA this year. It's like it's the Celtics. The healthy Celtics are the best team. So you need to make any moves that are going to help you get to the line. And if you're watching the main Celtics highlights, JD being like as good as Pritchard, I mean, is as much as I love Pritchard, and I think he actually can find a role in this league. I'm not super worried about the talent leaving the building. And in a couple of years being like, oh, we should have held on to Peyton Pritchard. I'm kind of in team trade if something actually helpful comes up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd love to see more JD minutes as well. If we do open up a guard spot there, like let's see it. He is like the main Celtics, by the way. I don't know their record. I follow them on Instagram and see their post-game results. They appear to be dominating.
I think they are. Yeah, I think they're killing it.
Which is obviously not to say that JD is going to come in and we're going to see the same level of domination. That's obviously not the case, but maybe, who knows?
Brad Stevens, man, he's running. He's top to bottom. It's a system. It's a machine.
Absolutely. Now, look, final question here, and it leans heavily on a Wayne Spooney tweet, and that is it time to look at the rotations? Again, maybe this has been answered because Spooney, as you mentioned, that was addressed in the rotations in this game, but you've posted a screenshot here of just how effective the Tatum and Brogdon combination is compared to the Brown and Brogdon combination. Like I just said, this is only one game, but this was addressed more so in this particular game. Do you think that's going to be something we see permanently going forward?
I don't know. Joe is keeping me on my toes, man. He really is. Like I think he has a plan, but I really do think like Brad used to drive us nuts because one night Tyler Zeller would play 35 minutes and then next night he'd play 10 or something like that. And just like, this is madness. Why is David Lee starting tonight, Brad? What is going on? So I think Joe has a lot of that in him where he's like, I'm just going to keep putting stuff out there, see what works. And then I bet you in March or late February, we really start to see those like nailed down. At this minute, you come in for this guy. At this minute, you come in for this guy. That really nailed on rotation like we got from Ime in the second half of the season last year. But for now, I have absolutely no idea. He might yank both the Jays and bring in Brogdon at the 6-minute mark next game. Who knows?
Yeah. Again, I want him to throw stuff at the wall. It's like one of my favorite things about Brad Stevens. It's like you never know unless you try. It does make sense to me that Tatum and Brogdon. This is also a tricky part of these stats. It's like Tatum and anyone tends to have like pretty good numbers. But it does make sense to me that Tatum and Brogdon make sense because Tatum's creating like much better advantages for Brogdon to attack than Jaylen is. Like Jaylen's not getting the ball to Brogdon as cleanly as Tatum is. It's usually after Jaylen's gotten into trouble and not kind of as Tatum's manipulated the defense purposefully to get Brogdon like a good driving lane or an open catch and shoot three. It does make sense though that like unlocking Brogdon and tying that to Tatum makes sense just because of how much like Brogdon has this ability to like kind of go nuclear and give you like 10, 15 point quarters. And I think tying him to Tatum gives you a better chance of seeing some of that stuff. So I'd probably give that more of a go.
Yeah, even if it lifts him out of his apparent funk, because one of the very early trends that didn't last long this season was like, oh, we no longer need to worry about, not having Tatum out there because we've got Brogdon as a stabilizer who can come out there and run the show a little bit with the bench with the help of, Jaylen and maybe Derek White, but we could give these longer rests to Tatum and not have to feel, too concerned about what that looked like. Yeah, like you say, maybe we can bring Tatum and Brogdon together to help lift him out of that funk and then retransition him back to that role. Guys, we're going to move on to a bit of meaningless banter to wrap the show up here. Scal and Perk ran the commentary team during the San Antonio game the other day. This ruffled some feathers among the fan base. Spoonie is laughing. Jake is shaking his head. So we're going to go to Jake here. I want to get this reaction. What were your thoughts on this performance, if you want to call it that, from Scal and Perk?
Oh man, I switched to the Spurs broadcast side until like the second quarter. Yeah. I was like, are they going to talk? Are they going to talk about the game once? I don't like. Did Tatum get a technical? Like what? Like what is going on? I need what is happening in the game? Please, for the love of God, talk about the NBA basketball game that's happening in front of your eyes. Yeah, I didn't like it. Maybe if they can corral them into actually doing the job, it could be better. But Scala's play-by-play
so bad.
So bad. It's so bad. Yeah.
It's fun for a quarter, maybe two.
Yeah.
But it's like a close game, and Tatum busts a dribble move, and Perk's just like, ugh. Oh,
yeah.
What is going on
What is
right
happening
now?
under the table here?
So I think for the first quarter, I actually enjoy it and think it's fun. And then it's like, all right, where's Mike? Or bring Grandy up from Media Row or wherever he's at, calling the game with Maxwell.
Yeah, I think
that
yeah, go Ben.
Sorry, go ahead, Jake.
I was like Z Gamer in the chat, it reminds me of the Madden cast. If that's a separate option, yeah. If it's a chill game and we're up by 20 or it's a preseason game or whatever, it's more of a podcast vibe, then sure. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's much that I could add to what you guys have said. I think the general consensus is that it just wasn't good at all. I do think that Scal obviously knows the game, and he has some really good stretches where I genuinely find what he has to offer helpful in helping me understand the game. The problem is that it hasn't gelled well with anyone that they've partnered him with so far. And, he's been with some greats like Gorman and Grandy, and it's beginning to speak more to Scal's deficiencies as a broadcaster, I think, than anyone else, that we can't find anyone to gel with him. And then, everyone knows what Kendrick Perkins is about, so nothing to add there. I did pose the question, though, guys. We'll start with you, Spoonie. What would be your dream, Celtic-centric commentary lineup? Well, let's go with past players. Obviously, we're not going to get current players to call their own game. Although, if you want to go there, we can, I suppose.
Man, I honestly didn't see this when I looked at the run sheet, so I have nothing prepared. So if you have something off the top of your head, please jump in.
The tricky part, I think, is who is going to be the play-by-play guy. That's the
problem.
Because even Gorman, as soon as the pregame started, he's forgetting who DeMar DeRozan is at times today, but his cadence and timing is so good. Just the way that it's Tatum, pause for two. It's just versus Scala's Tatum dribbling around. Oh, and it's you don't need to just do less. Just do less as the play-by-play guy. Pretty straightforward. But as a color guy replacement, Evan Turner is a guy that comes to mind who would be unreal. I think you might have to get the beeps ready to go with Turner, but I think he'll be awesome.
Yeah, Evan Turner. I feel he'd be a pretty good sideline reporter as well.
Yeah.
I think just cut to ET down on the sideline for his weird little insights. I had Rondo and KG as mine, with Rondo doing the play-by-play, which it's going to come off a little dry, but he knows ball, and I think that he, personality-wise, is reeled in enough to not lay down too much of a thick personality on it and just keep it about the game. And then, completely conversely to that, KG is just going to come in a little bit like Tommy Heinsohn with just these ridiculous contrarian takes and anti-ref, banter. I think that'd potentially be a really good duo. The likelihood of getting those guys together in any capacity in that sense, extremely unlikely. So never going to happen, but I think it'll be
KG on the broadcast would last half a quarter before
the FCC would show up at TD Garden and drag him out of there.
He would
the
be
broadcast
so much.
truck just unplugs itself. And just drives away.
Go.
This is why you need like the R-rated channel for KG.
Yeah.
Like, it would be so amazing. Man, but like obviously Brad Stevens is quite busy, but I feel like he would have the patience and the cadence for a good play-by-play.
A play-by-play guy is like, that's just such a wildly different profession than NBA basketball player. Like I can't, like maybe CJ McCollum is like the only guy I could see right now in the NBA who might be a play-by-play, but like I can't think of an ex-player that's a play-by. It's all like, Syracuse journalism school kids, right?
Yeah. Even before seeing the question that Ben put in there, like I had tweeted, like I want, like when it's Gorman's time, like there's no one's popped up that's been actually good, as we've said, but like,
I love Grandy. I know you're not a big, I absolutely love Grandy. He needs to realize he's not on the radio, so he doesn't have to be so explanatory. But I think once he settles in, he'll be awesome. I
think that's the combo that I'm struggling with. Like if there was like solid play-by-play plus Grandy, then I think that I would be in on it. What I want Wick to do is find Boston's Iron Eagle. Like there's got to be some, like it doesn't have to be from Boston necessarily. There's got to be someone like Brad Stevens. Like you're get your Brad Stevens recruiting hat on. There's got to be some broadcaster, some kid somewhere that's like absolutely awesome at this. Like some kid that's doing like the UMass games or something. Or like I bet you. No, you would know better than me. All right. But there's got to be some kid somewhere that's like that just has the cadence. Hopefully, has a cool voice.
Throw the bag at Mike Breen.
Oh yes, please.
Yeah, I love Breen.
Kevin Harlan, I would take as well. Just love the volume and explosiveness there. But look, there's a lot of spicy combinations out there, whether it's combining no media personnel with known players or vice versa. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, either on YouTube or Celtics blog. Thoughts on that segment or anything we've talked about in this podcast. Guys, that is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. Our buddies over at Green with Envy, they'll be back with another pod on this feed early Thursday morning. We'll be back to close out the week on Friday night-ish. Until then, Spoonie, Jake, love your work, guys. Thanks again.
Thanks, Ben.
See you, mate.
All right, guys, go Celtics. Peace.